Hello, welcome back. Um, been a minute. Sorry about that. I have a job that I have to go to 5 days out of 7 in a week, so I don't find tons of time to do this stuff anymore. But that's okay. I'm here now. I'm gonna record a couple videos tonight so that I can put them up throughout the course of the week, so that you guys aren't waiting too long for them. Because a lot more people watch these than I expected. I'm really happy about that. Each of these videos is tracking like 20 something views, which is so much more than I was getting when I was making gaming content. And I'm really happy to see that. That really vindicates my idea to spend my time to do this. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around for that. Um, but today I'm talking about uh, probably, I think it's my most recent theatrical viewing, which is Sonic 3. Uh, I want to say, I'm not. So, to preface my viewing of this movie, I'm not a huge Sonic fan, or at least I wasn't. Every time, like usually I'm like, oh yeah, no. I mean, Sonic as a concept is fine. I'm familiar with him, but I don't really care for the games. Every time one of these movies comes out, it happened with the first one, it happened with the second one, and it's happening now. Something clicks in my brain, and its name is autism. And that's not a joke. I have a diagnosis in my email. That's real. I am on the spectrum. Um, Something just activates in my brain that launches me into a fever for these fucking games. Look at this. Look at this. I bought a Lego BioLizard because of this fuck ass movie. This was $40. I and on top of that, you can't really see him on the shelf over here. There's a Lego Shadow the Hedgehog on his bike over here that was $20. I spent $60 on Sonic Legos after seeing this movie, not to mention the however much I paid for tickets and concessions across both screenings of this movie that I saw. Yeah, that's right. I saw it twice because I have autism. It's really because my stepdad wanted to see it, so I went to see it with him and my partner, and then some friends of mine wanted to see it, so I went to see it with them and my partner. Um, this guy's awesome though. Like, not to turn this into a review of the Lego BioLizard, but this guy's badass. I love him a lot. Like his tail fully articulates, his head articulates, his mouth articulates. He fires little studs out of these guys. Not to call them pegs, they're called studs. I'm a real Lego fan, I swear. I have a Lego Ornithopter back there. And there's like a spinball launcher that you can use that hits into the gills right here and pops this out. It's super cool. Really good Lego set for $40. Like the novelty of it is fucking incredible. But back to a movie that the Bio Lizard is not in. He's kind of in it. Um, this movie is pretty easily the best of the three. That first Sonic movie is kind of rough, just because it's partially Robotnik in that first movie. You know, he just doesn't really feel like Robotnik yet. Then in the second movie, they're like doing. He's definitely doing the shtick. You know, he looks like him. He's acting like him. And then in this movie, Jim Carrey is tasked. In this movie, Jim Carrey is tasked with playing not only Robotnik, but also Gerald Robotnik. And that was one of my biggest things with this movie when it came out, is that it was making it pretty clear that it was going to be adapting Sonic Adventure 2, or at least taking inspiration from Sonic Adventure 2. I wouldn't call this an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2, not at all. I played that entire game for the first time in preparation for for my second viewing, because I didn't play it before my first viewing. I was aware of the cliff notes of the story, though. Um, and the, they kept Gerald alive in this movie, and they established that he's 107, which is how old he would have to be if he's alive in the modern era. Because assuming that because he's still like old as hell in all of the media that depicts him in the past when Maria's still alive. And I think they do a really, it's a very subtle bit, but it's when he first shows up and Jim Carrey does like the whole shtick with him, and he's like, "Not looking bad for 107," and then he touches the quill to his tongue and he does the bit where he like shocks himself, but it makes sense because that quill would be imbued with chaos energy, and the implication being that that's keeping him alive. I think that's really cool. I think they do a good job of justifying him being alive and using him in an interesting way while he's alive. Because he's long dead in Sonic Adventure 2. He's been dead for 50 years in Sonic Adventure 2. And it's like a program that he left in the Ark that crashes it down into uh, the Earth. They do a good job of keeping that characterization for him, not to get into spoilers so soon. But and talking about Gerald being in this movie isn't a spoiler. It's in the trailers. Um, but another big factor that I feel like is making this one the biggest or the best movie in the trilogy is that it has the absolute least of Tom and Maddie in it. I'm sorry. So I love James Marsden, right? I love him so dearly. I played his character in the Hairspray film, a production of it in 8th grade. I played his character. Everybody loved it, by the way. I kind of killed it. But so I've always felt that kind of connection to James Marsden because I played that character. I I love James Marsden so much. I think he's great, and he's great in these movies. But Tom is just such an uninteresting character. All of the human characters are uninteresting. It's a video game movie about like anthropomorphic animals. Obviously, the human characters are boring, with the exception of Dr. Eggman and Gerald. Um, and Stone, which leads me into another really good thing about this movie, is Stone and Robotnik's relationship. There, there are so many. This movie makes me almost cry every time I watch it, and all of those scenes relate to Stone, except for like the scene where Maria dies,. Because obviously. Um, but there's the scene where like they're all in VR after Robotnik first meets Gerald, and they're like having fun on the park bench, and he's got the two coffees behind him, and he sees them hanging out, and he dumps the coffees into the trash can, and he takes his helmet off. Makes me so sad. Genuinely, like probably like that's a very emotional scene for me because I he's just so devoted to Dr. Robotnik because he's the only person who cares, and that goes both ways. I And the other scene is the final scene, spoilers, where the Eclipse cannon explodes and he broadcasts the whole thing, and like they're gay, right? Like I'm not misinterpreting that. There's literally a scene where somebody says to Dr. Stone like, "Oh, you and Dr. Robotnik must be really good friends." And he goes, "Yeah, friends. That's definitely what we are." Hello? Am I misreading that? I can't be, right? And even Lee Majdu, the person who plays Stone, like leans into that super hard on Twitter. He's super like into all of that, and I love that so much. Um, but yeah, like it's explicit in this movie. Not like that. It's explicit in that way, obviously. It's still a kids movie, but I love that so much in an era uh where like Disney is cutting out the trans storylines from their movies in whatever the hell that new thing that's coming out is. I love to see stuff like that, you know? Just like stuff that's even implicitly queer like that. I absolutely love to see that. Um but the one thing that I haven't talked about yet that is kind of the most important part of this movie is Shadow. Obviously, Shadow's in this movie because of course he is. Um, he was in the post-credit scene of the second movie. Now he's in this one, and he's incredible in this movie. Um, he's voiced by Keanu Reeves, who is kind of just doing the Keanu Reeves voice. He's just doing the like, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back voice the entire movie. But it works. It works so perfectly for what Shadow is doing in that movie. Um, there's one thing that kind of I wouldn't say that it bothers me. I just think it's an interesting choice because they change Shadow's origin in this movie. They change his origin in the sense that like he just crashes in a meteor from space in this movie. Meanwhile, in the games, it's like so much more convoluted than that for no reason. Gerald is trying to make the ultimate life form, and initially he creates the bio lizard, and then he gets visited by Black Doom, and like Black Doom uses his DNA to make Shadow better or whatever the fuck. I haven't played Shadow the Hedgehog. I think that's what the story is. And that's like why Shadow has ties to Black Doom in the game. But I think that making him just like inherently alien is a way better way of doing that because now you get to avoid that retcon of like Black Doom talking to Gerald and giving him his DNA to put into Shadow to create the ultimate life form. Now you don't have to worry about that retcon because it was always the case to begin with. You can just be like, oh yeah, that meteor that he crashed from was like part of the black meteor or the what is it called, the black comet in Shadow the Hedgehog that the black arms are from. You can just say that he was from that the entire time, and it'll work. Uh, I think that's cool. I think that was a good call because again, spoilers. There's a scene at the very end of this movie. It's the second post credit scene after the first one, which I will talk about momentarily. Um, where it's established that Shadow is not dead because of course he's not. Um, they didn't even kill him in the game, really. They kind of kill him in the game, but then in Sonic Heroes, he's like, "Oh, I just don't remember who I am. Actually, I'm fine though." Even though the end cutscene in Sonic Adventure 2 is so weird because they just don't touch on the fact that Shadow's dead. Like nobody, it seems like nobody gives a shit. Nobody even brings it up. They're like lamenting the fact that the Earth almost got destroyed, but it doesn't really seem like anybody gives a shit about Shadow. The fact that he's fucking dead. They don't show his body either. He just crashes down to Earth and that's it. Nobody says anything. There's no like establishing shot revealing that he's still alive. He's just back in Sonic Heroes. It's so strange. Um, but anyway, uh, I'm assuming that there will probably be either a Shadow standalone series that adapts Shadow the Hedgehog a la Knuckles, or there will be a movie adapting Shadow the Hedgehog. I think they could pretty safely make a movie out of it because Shadow is a marketable enough character. I think they probably just did the Knuckles show because it's like, can we really market like a whole movie off of just Knuckles? You can easily market a whole movie off of Shadow. They just did. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog 3. They just did market a whole movie based off of just Shadow. Um, but I would absolutely love to see that because I love Shadow as a character. I always have, despite not really caring for the Sonic games all that much. Um, I have gone back and played some of Adventure One, and I'm enjoying it a lot so far. Granted, I've only played Sonic Story so far, so that could very well change. But and yes, I'm playing it with like the fucking Dreamcast mod on Steam or whatever. I downloaded the like DX mod installer and checked all the fucking boxes. So I'm playing it as intended. But the final thing that I want to talk about is what was it? Oh, right. The first post credit scene where they establish that Metal Sonic and Amy are going to be in the next game or in the next movie. Maybe not even the next movie, but that they're well, because it's got to be the next movie because it like picks up immediately where the final scene in this movie leaves off. and it seems like they're going for more of a like Terminator plot kind of thing, because like Metal just kind of touches down. There's like the electrical crackle, and then he shows up, and then there's like a shitload of him, and then Amy kills them all. So the obvious reference there is Sonic CD, because that's the game where Metal Sonic and Amy were both first introduced. But how the hell did they adapt Sonic CD? Like, how are they gonna do that? Because Sonic CD takes place on Tiny Planet, which is a planet. I think it's a planet that orbits the Earth every once in a while, or some shit like that. Or maybe it's not the Earth. Is it Mobius in the games? I don't remember. Is Mobius some shit that was made up for the Archie comics? I don't remember. But there's a planet called Tiny Planet that like orbits the Sonic planet every once in a while. So Eggman chains it to the main planet so that he can take it over for some reason. And then it just hit me. They're totally yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely Sonic CD because Sonic CD also has elements of time travel. So if Metal Sonic is from the future, then that absolutely makes sense. They're totally doing Sonic CD next. But I'm still curious to see how they do that with like the tiny planet shit and like the time emeralds. Or the time stones, I think they're called. They're the Chaos Emerald analog for Sonic CD. There's 7 of them and you need to collect them. But and especially with Robotnik implicitly being dead, because like there's no fucking way that he survived this time, right? Like there's no way. I think at least I kind of hope there's no way. I hope he's actually dead this time because I think these movies have cemented themselves enough in culture at this point that they like come out every couple years and I don't think they need Jim Carrey anymore. I think it was a really good idea to have him on board initially to like get the shit kick started and be like, "Hey, here's Jim Carrey, come see this movie." And then like the movies were actually pretty good also. The- Regardless of Jim Carrey being in it. Jim Carrey obviously elevates them a lot, but I think they can stand on their own 2 feet without him now. My biggest concern is the amount of characters that are going to be in the next movie. Because assuming that Shadow is in the next movie, all of your characters from just the Sonic games, not including any human characters, are going to be Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Metal Sonic, Amy, and Shadow. And I just think that's going to be a lot to condense into like an hour and a half long movie. This movie's an hour 40, Like, and I think it does a really good job of that. Yeah, I think it's well paced for what it is. But yeah, I'm just curious to see how that's going to go. Um, Final thoughts? Probably a 4 out of 5 for me. I think that's what I give it on Letterboxd. And it's very important to note that that 4 stars is only not a 3.5 because they played Live and Learn during the Super Shadow sequence. They do like the dap up and then they turn into their super selves and Live and Learn starts playing. I hear Live and Learn, I give it a 4 stars. I think it would be a worse movie without Live and Learn. It's like a weird mix of Live and Learn though. They don't play my favorite part of it, which is like the bridge where he says swallow really funny. But I think that's gonna be all. Really good movie. Super happy with it. Really excited for the next one. Thanks for watching, folks.